Hello everyone. In our study of NCERT 11th standard, the chapter that I started in last video, Life on Planet Earth, I want to continue it further. This chapter essentially talks about biomes and their characteristics. In the last video, we have learned that ecology do not change its fundamental principles. And whenever we talk about those fundamental principles, producers will always produce food, energy and matter. Consumers will be dependent on primary producers for their food energy requirement. There are minimal exceptions to it. Like we say, all plants are phototrophs, primary producers, but once it comes to mushroom, it is not a phototroph at all. Similarly, the pitcher plant, which do completes its nutrient requirement by eating insects, makes example of a plant that has got carnivorous eating or trophic characteristics also. So some exceptions surely are there. Otherwise, all the fundamental principles that we talked about in the last video remains the same. Then what exactly we are supposed to learn further? It's biome. Biomes and ecosystem is what we want to learn to complete this chapter of our NCERT. So I get quickly to the screen sharing now. Now, what we learned in the last class was biomes and ecosystem. Now, the point that we have learned is that ecosystem is comprised of components and interactive links. If that is ecosystem, how do I relate it to biomes? Biomes is the assemblage of similar type of organisms in a geographic environment. What I need to understand is that ecosystem and biomes relate to each other, but they are not synonym to each other. When I say they relate to each other and not are synonym, what exactly is the point that we make is that within a biome, within a given geographical environment, there can be more than one ecosystem. Take it for example, I take reference of any of the biome. I'm picking up a forest biome. Supposedly a forest biome is taken into consideration and I'm learning what are the adaptations, which are the organisms that are being applied. Now in a forest, supposedly my example here is say Amazon forest, which has been right there. It's called selvas actually. It was there in newspapers because of the massive forest fire in the recent past. Now, if I take forest biome and that too rainforest biome, my absolute example comes out to be selvas of Brazil. It is a forest biome, agreed. But will it not be that within selvas, I have got Amazon basin? And if it is Amazon basin, it is riverine habitat that is also there. There can be certain locations of other lakes that can be the habitat. Point is, forest biome is assemblage of similar type of organisms in a given geographical environment, which we talked about in the last class, where similarity is essentially regulated by climatic conditions and range of other natural factors. Within a given biome, there can be more than one ecosystem, and that is the relation that I see between ecosystem and biome. They relate, but they are not synonym. I'm taking you to NCERT. Right here, types of biomes. There are 5 major types of biome: forest, desert, grassland, aquatic and altitudinal biome. When we talk about biomes in the global perspective, we identify 5 different types of biomes. Which are these biomes for us to take into reference? These includes forest biome, grassland biome, desert biome, aquatic biome, and altitudinal biome. NCERT asks us to read it like this. We can reorganize it. And that reorganization will give us the understanding as this. Terrestrial, aquatic. What is the fundamental difference between terrestrial and aquatic? Terrestrial will go with land, on land. So terrestrial is land biome. Land biome will always be two-dimensional. Because with every land biome, I'll be having what two dimensions altogether? Number one, I'll be having latitudinal, and number two, I'll be having a regional. Latitudinal, north-south, regional, east-west. Like if I say I'm traveling from Kerala to Jammu and Kashmir, it's a latitudinal dimension. And now I'm traveling from Arunachal Pradesh to Gujarat, it's a regional, longitudinal dimension. Compared to it, aquatic biome is always three-dimensional. What is the three dimensions that we take into account? One is latitudinal, two is regional, and three is depth. That means like terrestrial biomes, aquatic biome will have latitudinal stretch. Try to understand it like this. Let me talk about the second largest ocean of the world, most studied ocean of the world, Atlantic Ocean. Atlantic Ocean extends between 50 degrees north to 50 degrees south. So what is the extension of Atlantic Ocean latitudinally? 50 north to 50 south. And if I take South Atlantic, what is its regional extension? So regional extension is from one shoreline to the other shoreline. What is the one shoreline? Shoreline along South America. What is the other shoreline? Shoreline along Africa. So it is the regional dimension to Atlantic Ocean. And if I have to take depth, average depth of oceans are 4,000 meters. That means Atlantic Ocean habitat will have depth as an integral characteristic. So this is where I distinguish between terrestrial and aquatic. But how do I rope in the 5 types mentioned in NCERT? Aquatic remains as it is. Let me count it as number 1. Terrestrial gives me number 2, that is forest. Number 3, that is grassland. Number 4, that is desert. And number 5 with a star mark, altitudinal. Easier term, mountain. I again repeat my example of India. India latitudinally extends between approximate 8 degrees north to 37 degrees north latitude. India approximately extends between 67 degrees east to 97 degrees east longitudinal. But once I am in Himalayas, which type of biome I'll be encountered with? Altitudinal. To understand it, let us take the reference of this diagram. On the horizontal axis, we have been given latitude. And in the vertical axis, we have been given height. Now, I want you to concentrate on latitudinal version. In latitudinal version, you are increasing. I am believing it to be 0. So, let it be 0 degrees. I am right there at equator. And we are here at 90 degrees latitude. So, we are near poles. All of us can easily see that with increase in sign of latitude, because temperature decreases plus precipitation decreases, I have got tropical rainforest paving way to temperate hardwood deciduous, taiga, tundra and polar ice cap. Don't miss to see tropical, that stands for warm. Warm will essentially relate to wetter conditions, largely because we are talking about rainforest. Deserts are exception to it. Then we have got temperate, that will have comparative moderate temperature condition. Taiga are coniferous forest. Tundra. Tundra is largely with floatage adaptation of vegetation, which largely includes very popular one, mosses and lichens. So with increase in sign of latitude, decreasing temperature and essentially decreasing precipitation is changing vegetation type, is changing biome type from tropical rainforest to temperate hardwood deciduous, taiga, tundra and polar ice cap. Now if you concentrate on height, if I concentrate on height 0, now take it as 0 at mean sea level and you are continuously increasing height. And when I increase height, are we noticing tropical rainforest is paving way to temperate deciduous forest, taiga, tundra, and mountain ice cap. Notice similarity. With increase in height, I'm experiencing same type of transition. But remember, I need to have my mountain located at equator. Then this equation will be applicable. Because supposedly my mountain is located in the mid latitude. Supposedly my mountain is located at near 35 degrees latitude. Will it be experiencing equatorial type of climate? No, it will not. So the latitudinal location of mountains, height of the mountain, its sun bearing slope, and its moisture, that is maritime influence. And I repeat all of them: latitudinal location of the mountain, height of the mountain, sun bearing slope, and moisture content, whether it is located with maritime influence or it is located in absolute continentality. Like we can take reference of this image to understand it. If this is my hypothetical mountain, it supposedly is located at equator. What will be the foot biome that it will be having? It will be having tropical rain forest. With increase in height, it will have temperate forest, then it will have taiga, and if height permits, it will have tundra and all. But you need to understand that if it is the sun bearing slopes on both the sides, so supposedly I'm talking about western slope and eastern slope, then this will be, I'm hypothetically believing, windward wetter, leeward drier. So maritime influence is a very important thing. And in one of the earlier studies, I have already explained this. If this is my geoid and I take equator and place the mountain as east-west aligned in northern hemisphere, then the sun bearing slope will be southern and the opposite will be applicable to the southern hemisphere. That means in northern hemisphere, southern slopes supports habitat. If the mountains are east-west aligned, Himalayas for example. But if the mountains are north-south aligned, then it will be the east-west slope that we talked about in this diagram. Then it will be western slope and eastern slope both has sun bearing and altitudinal change will be applicable. So evident, when I talk about the latitude and altitude effects of climate and vegetation in biomes, they do have got repetitive sequence. However, altitude is the third dimension modification to the land biomes. I want to first talk about aquatic biome before proceeding to the land biome. So how many types of biomes we have? Aquatic and terrestrial has got a bulkier list. So first going to the aquatic biome. The aquatic biome, the important factors that we need to understand is the types of life forms. In the aquatic biomes, the type of life forms that are being identified includes planktonic, nectonic, and benthos. Now, planktonic is essentially related to planktons, floating. but is it all only floating plants? Planktonic incorporate all the major types of phototrophs that we can correlate with the aquatic ecosystem. So it's very important beginning. Without that, we cannot make understanding with aquatic biome. So what we are discussing right now, lifestyles of aquatic ecosystem. So lifestyle 1 will be called phototroph. Phototroph essentially relates to planktonic lifestyle, but it also includes, now see it here, submerged plants, macrophytes, rooted here but has got floating characteristics and emerged, periphytes. What exactly is the difference between the planktonic, periphytes and macrophyte? Planktonic lifestyle is floating lifestyle. They float. They are not static to a given location. However, when I talk about macrophytes as well as periphytes, they are rooted plants. So they cannot change their location. Essentially, what is the difference between them is that macrophytes are submerged plants and periphytes are floating or emerged plants. They are examples of phototrophs, primary producers in aquatic ecosystem. Is this the life form or lifestyle that we see in aquatic ecosystem? No, we have got other lifestyles also. Which are they? Now we are talking about nectons. Nectons essentially includes swimmers, and swimmers essentially is represented by fishes. Whether it is finfish or it is shellfish, they represents nectons. Nectons thus represents swimmers. So can we make sense with the point that if it is that aquatic ecosystem includes periphytes, macrophytes, or for that matter planktons, they will be largely associated with photic habitat, sunlit habitat, because they cannot survive in the absence of sunlight. They require sunlight to produce food, energy, and matter. However, when it comes to nectons, the swimmers, the big variety of shellfish, finfish, and big range of heterotrophs, they can survive both in photic as well as a photic zone. I'll explain it just in a while. Let us first take reference of the third type of life form. Benthos. Can we notice benthic zone written here? Deep zone. Benthos is largely applied to be attached somewhere in deep zone. And benthos is categorized into two. One is called motile and two is called sessile. How it can be motile when it is attached? Motile is essentially like tall grasses, which somewhere has got root but can swing here and there. And sessile is something that is static at a given location. So benthos goes with deep water, always a photic, and planktons goes with photic. Necton has got much omnipresence when it comes to aquatic ecosystem. So lifestyles in aquatic ecosystem is categorized into three: planktonic, better or broader term will be producers or planktons or phototrophs, because they will give us the possibility to include periphytes and macrophytes, nectons and benthos. With increase in the sign of latitude, biodiversity will decrease. Margins are more productive. Thus diverse than open water. That means if this is my hypothetical water body, I'm not talking about depth right now. this is shoreline 1 and this is shoreline 2, then the margins will be more productive compared to open water. And why that is the case? Because margins will have even terrestrial nutrients. I'm writing dual nutrients. And noted that we are right there in the sunlit zone. I'm only talking about surface water. And what goes with the fundamentals of ecological setup? Lower latitudinal water by default will have higher availability of sunlight, higher availability of water, no say rainfall, and thus it will be having higher biodiversity compared to the higher latitudinal water. But this doesn't suffice because we know that aquatic ecosystem is three-dimensional. So what we have to add, average depth of oceans is at 4,000 meters. Taking every aspect of sign of latitude, or for that matter the season cycle, the determiners of availability of sunlight, I cannot have more than 1200 meters of depth of photic zone. So this is my photic zone and this is my aphotic zone. If I have to enlarge it, we also have got a dysphotic zone. What you need to essentially understand is production plus respiration, only respiration. Because production will not take place, and I'm talking about primary production, production will not take place if it is lack of availability of sunlight. So this depth is the boundary line between photic and aphotic zone, and it is technically called critical depth. And basically taking these two stratas into consideration, there are distinctive categories of depth-based habitat for aquatic ecosystem that has been demarcated. Essentially, however, what is critical depth? Critical depth is the depth where production balances respiration. That automatically means that over and above critical depth, biodiversity will be higher compared to the aphotic zone where biodiversity will be significantly lower. So whenever we talk about aquatic ecosystem, we essentially talk about this. An aquatic ecosystem can be given the names also, and these names are based on the lifestyle. However, it is not that much demarcating. Let me quickly add that also. Off the bottom is pelagic, and on the bottom is benthic. That means benthic will always be aphotic. Pelagic can be both aphotic and photic. This is aquatic three-dimensional ecosystem. What are the three-dimensional aspects that we take into account? The three-dimensional aspect is biodiversity will decrease with increase in sign of latitude. Biodiversity will decrease with increasing distance from the shoreline and with increasing depth. Only one thing that you should keep in mind is the chemotrophs along hydrothermal vents do provides presence of producers in a photic zone, because we are talking about worms and calms which produces food, energy and matter by this hot sulfur rich water that can have a temperature of more than 150 degrees Celsius. That is the reason it is called hydrothermal. Black smokers is also the common name that is being applied to it. Now, if I go to terrestrial ecosystem, we essentially need to understand two prime determiners. Which are they? The determiners are temperature and precipitation. So, if I ask you to see the bottom slot, Here the temperature is high throughout. High temperature, however, with warm with wet will create tropical rainforest forest. If it is that warm continues, but we decrease the amount of precipitation, because amount of precipitation is on decrease here. So moderate wet, I'll have grassland. And if it is that I have got absolute arid conditions, mind it is warm, I'll have desert. So what is the difference between desert biome, grassland biome and forest biome? They all are warm, but they differ from each other in terms of amount of precipitation. And this basically gives me the understanding of the fact that amount of precipitation is the prime determiner of capacity of phototroph to convert solar energy into food energy and matter. So in the lower latitude essentially will be, and I have got a big table in NCERT that you can take into reference, 10 degrees to 30, 35 degrees north and south. Why I have not included 0 degrees? Because 10 degrees north to 10 degrees south will be equatorial rainforest. If I take that, I'll be taking you to one more image, it will give you clarity. So if I say I'm in tropical latitude, so tropical latitude will essentially stand for warm. In this warm, if the amount of precipitation is high, then I'll be having forest biome. If the amount of precipitation is moderate, then I'll have grassland. And if it is less, then I'll have desert. If I increase the sign of latitude and I decrease temperature, so in mid latitude, I'll have temperate forest. Temperate forest will be wet, but it will now not be as warm as tropical. And then it paves way to grassland. So grassland here and grassland here. What exactly is the difference between them? Tropical grasslands are savanna. It is also referred as woodland. And temperate grasslands are steppes or prairies, the true grassland. The chaparrals being mentioned here essentially represents Mediterranean vegetation. It is much forest type, but because Mediterranean climate experiences long hot summer drought, it has got short stunted trees, deep roots, small thick glossy leaves. So it's a different type of vegetation. Otherwise, same thing here. Forest is paving way to grasses and grasses is paving way to desert. Mind it, Gobi desert is colder than Sahara desert. So here we are talking about desert like Sahara desert, tropical desert, and here I am talking about deserts like Gobi desert, the temperate desert, mid-latitudinal desert. Mid-latitudinal desert will support lesser biodiversity compared to Sahara desert. Reason? Sahara desert is much more warmer than Gobi desert. And sunlight is the prerequisite for producers. Higher the production, higher will be feeding capacity. Then I further increase the sign of latitude and I can easily see in this image, we have got coniferous trees, boreal forest, coniferous forest. At this sign of latitude, the precipitation becomes more or less uniformly distributed because we are not going to the details of climate here. Precipitation in continental and coastal areas do not differ much. Further increasing the sign of latitude, tundra. Tundra is considered to be the highest latitudinal biome. And what about boreal? It is highest latitudinal forest biome, which is largely confined between 60 degrees to 70 degrees north latitude. Very important. Reason, at this latitude in southern hemisphere, it's southern ocean. Let's quickly revise it with support of this different diagram. Now I have got precipitation plotted on horizontal axis and temperature on vertical axis. So carefully notice it. Tropical rainforest. Amount of precipitation more than 250 centimeters. Temperature is not changing, but because precipitation is decreasing, so we have got tropical seasonal forest. Safely read it as monsoonal forest. Maximum of our country has it. And savanna, which we have noticed as grassland already earlier. If I further decrease the amount of precipitation as I am doing right here, I have reached desert. Don't miss to see desert. I am quickly shading it with dots. Desert gives me the temperature of less than 0 degrees Celsius. That means I can demarcate the boundary here. This will be my tropical desert and that will be my temperate desert. Looks difficult diagram, but it is the most easy way for me to understand land biomes. Which are the other types of land biomes that I can have? In mid latitude, I have got temperate forest, which can be evergreen, which can be deciduous. And more I get to the drier areas, I have temperate grassland and shrublands. If I further increase the sign of latitude, that is, I'm continuously decreasing temperature. You can see temperature is decreasing right here. Then it is boreal forest, taiga forest, paving way to tundra. So lower latitude has which type of land biome? Lower latitude have forest biome, savanna biome, desert biome in decreasing amount of precipitation. Mid latitude has got forest biome, grassland biome, and again desert biome with a decreasing amount of precipitation. Higher latitude has got boreal, that is taiga, and tundra, again with a decreasing amount of precipitation as well as temperature. I have not emphasized in the table that is given in NCERT. I have taken diagrams to make you understand those tables. Take reference of those tables and make sense with. Biodiversity is determined by primary production. Biodiversity, genetic, species, and ecosystem is regulated by feeding capacity, which is regulated by primary production, which is regulated by availability of sunlight and water, which is regulated by sign of latitude. In a given sign of latitude, why forest biome will have higher biodiversity than desert? Because temperature may be same, water is different. And why it is so that taiga forest will be less diverse compared to tropical rainforest? Because tropical rainforest will have availability, plentiful availability of both sunlight. I hope this will help you to easily tame this particular difficult chapter of our NCERT. Do take reference of the table given in NCERT, but I insist that you try to make sense with that table with support of these diagrams that I have added. So happy learning to all of you. Goodbye for the time.